physical problems that I was having at the time just made sense that I had been exposed to the virus. The test wasn't available at that time. For the next year and a half, I just kind of dealt with that in varying stages of denial and varying stages of acceptance, but pretty much by myself. And so I went to my doctor and had the HIV antibody test done, and I said I needed my credentials and I was going to start a support group.
He was so incredible. Chris put an ad in Gay Chicago.
Ran for 2 weeks and I got about 15 responses to that. I started the mailing list for TPA, picked a Friday and picked a place and said this is our first meeting, and I think it was June 17th or June of 1987.
From the time we started with 19 people, we ended up in a few months with over 200 people.
I did find TPAN later that year. I wasn't one of the first 19, but I found it within my first year, and that place offered me group support. It helped me deal with some of the fear of the unknown and just to have the camaraderie of other people.
And I was told, as we all were told, you have 18 to 24 months to live.
We'd go to St. Joseph's Hospital one night a week in between our meetings, and then we would go over to Illinois Masonic, which were the two hospitals in the gay ghetto that eventually set up wards, entire floors. We could just go up and down the hall because they were TPA members. Not all of them, but almost all of them.
TPA could also not risk putting any identifying marks on the doors or the building on the exterior because the hate was so high.
Everybody was trying anything that might save their lives. Later, of course, we began to have women with AIDS, and the population of TPA changed from almost all whites to now a few women to blacks and Hispanics.
That's how TPA got its start, and that's why TPA was effective, because a group of guys who were HIV positive came together and they said, basically, there's nobody to help us, we've got to help ourselves.
Part of the TPA meeting at the end, the last 15 minutes, and sometimes it went on for half hour or longer, called the bye session, like goodbye, death has taken. And people would tell about that. Or in that bye session, they would tell some experience they'd had in dealing with AIDS. For instance, I remember the story of a young man who finally came out to his parents and then went downstate in Illinois to see them. And when he got there, his parents wouldn't let him in the house. They would not let him in the house. And the screen door was locked because they were afraid with this disease he'd come in and he'd kill them. So he went down the road and he went to his grandmother's house and he got the same treatment, the grandmother that he loved. We heard it over and over again of rejection and of horror. And yet there was people like Hannah, Lisa, would come right in and hold the hands of our brothers that were dying, and a few sisters. And Hannah would do channeling, and she'd help them to the next world. And she was magic.
For me, it was all about hope. Chris's motivation was to give people the highest possible quality of life, and he saw that happening by coming together.
What I remember very clearly was we were kind of shooting for that point where we could manage it instead of everybody just dropping like flies. And that's hope.
Yes,
hope allows you to have that mentality. When you are filled with despair, when you are filled with fear, you can't look forward. You can't look beyond your own feet.
It's important also that TPA or any organization be open to diverse groups. People of color, women and children, anyone who needs the information. It shouldn't matter, and it doesn't matter. If you're gay, if you're black, if you're white, if you're asymptomatic, if you're PWA, we're here for you. Accept me for who I am. I am black, and I'm also a person with AIDS, and this is who I am. If you can't accept it, that's your problem. It's not mine.
Positively Aware PA is TPAN's magazine.
And we used to meet at Chris's apartment and assemble them. In other words, it was shoestring and it was big and it was help. And you talk about the outreach and the gift of TPA to the whole AIDS crisis. I've traveled all around the country and world, and I see copies of that magazine and I talk to people about it. This became their source of information. The magazine became the doctor.
But it's literally a tool that we use for all of our clients. And for my newly diagnosed clients, the drug guide is what's really, really valuable. It makes something that seems impossible to understand to have it really broken down on this really easy sheet to say, okay, here are my options. I can take this with me to my physician's office and navigate this a little bit more easily. TPAN is a place where people come for answers and solutions. And that's really what Chris started, that family approach to figure out how can I help my brothers and sisters navigate this process.
TPA just happened to be the seed in the right earth at the right time to take off and grow.
To me, it's Chris Clayson's living legacy.
Reach out. These arms were meant for loving. Just because you have more than somebody else doesn't mean you can't give more than somebody else. And that you can reach out, you can keep caring, you can keep supporting. You can, if nothing else, if you've been successful, you can write a check and you can help.